The Haltom City Council is called to order. The invocation tonight will be led by Mr. Barry Toms. Barry, will you lead us in invocation, please? Please rise.
Let's pray. Dear Father God, we come this evening, Lord, and we just want to thank you for the many blessings that you give us in this country that we live in. We want to thank you for sending your Son to this world, Lord, that we might have someone that we can call on that would beseech you and would come right before you with our pleas. We ask you tonight, Lord, we know there's a lot of emotion in this room. There's a lot of emotion in our community, and we ask you to come and not to give us a common sense, Lord, but to give us an uncommon sense that only comes from you. We ask you for a spirit of unity. We ask you for a spirit of clear thinking and peacefulness. And we know that the plans that you have for our city and for our community are for good, not for evil, Lord. And we just ask you to put an anointing on this meeting tonight, an anointing on the decision makers' heads, and an anointing on the homeowners and the business people, Lord, that we'll know that when everything is said and done, that it was your will, and that you're opening up a brand new era for this little city, that we might be a shining example to the rest of the Metroplex, what you can do when people who live here allow you to do it. We thank you so much for everything you are and everything you're going to be in our lives and in our community. And most importantly, dear Lord, we thank you for being the only thing in the whole world we can count on that's not a lie. Amen.
Republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the announcements and events. Assistant City Manager Chuck Barnett.
Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, City Council, I'm not sure if anybody's interested in the announcements tonight, but I'm going to make them. A program recognizing the winners of the 20th Annual Images of Haltom City Photo Contest will take place tomorrow evening beginning at 6:30 at the Recreation Center. 2 of the contest judges will be in attendance and will answer any questions anyone has about the contest and about photography in general. Everyone
Chuck,
is
can
welcome.
you get a little closer to the mic? Pull the mic up there to you.
I'm going to stick it down my throat here.
Eat it. Yeah.
I was just talking about the Haltom City Photo Contest, Mayor, and they will take place tomorrow at 6:30 at the Recreation Center. 2 judges will be in presence and attendance to answer questions about photography in general, and everyone is welcome to attend. So I would encourage everyone that's here tonight to attend. The national author Cinda Williams Chima will make an appearance at the Haltom City Public Library on Monday, May 5th. The book sale and signing is co-sponsored by the Haltom City Library along with Birdville ISD Middle School Libraries. It will take place from 6 to 8 p.m. Annie Golightly, a local veteran of the entertainment scene, will be featured during an open house and book signing scheduled for 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Thursday on May the 15th at the Haltom City Public Library. Ms. Golightly will be reading some of her anecdotes and stories for which she is well known and received awards. Anyone interested in joining the fight against crime is welcome to attend the monthly Crime Watch Captains meetings, which will take place at 7 p.m. the second Tuesday of each month at the Recreation Center. The Crime Watch Captains, in cooperation with Tarrant Regional Auto Task Force, will have scheduled a VIN, which is their vehicle identification number. They will have an etching event on Saturday, May the 31st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Residents may bring their vehicles to 5600 Denton Highway and take advantage of this free service. Our CRUD Cruiser is coming to Haltom City on Saturday, May the 24th for a special collection of household hazardous waste. Hours are 9 to 11 a.m., and the location is the IESI Convenience Center, which is at 2120 Menace Drive. Residents may also bring documents for shredding. There is no charge for disposal or for the shredding service. For further information, please call 817-222-7767. Now, I would encourage the residents to take advantage of this because you have so much of the way of theft for identity today. There is still time to submit your entry into the Haltom City Public Library's 8th Annual Texas Writers Month contest. The categories include short story and poetry. For guidelines, please contact the library at 817-222-7786. This deadline is Saturday, May the 31st. Quite a few activities going on at the library. Friends of Haltom City Public Library raised $2,390 last week from their annual book sale. Library staff extends their heartfelt thanks to those tireless volunteers and to all the citizens who participated. The Parks Department thanks those who helped make Springfest this last Saturday a great success. There was good food, family fun, and great sporting competition. I know I enjoyed the corn dogs. The Parks Department thanks those who helped them. Dumpsters Day will also be held Saturday for the first time at IESI Convenience Center. This last Saturday, a total of 199 households recycled metal, disposed of junk, trash, and debris, and cleaned up their yard waste and tires. This event is annual and it's free to the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have standing room only, and in honor of your time and comfort, what I'm going to do tonight, before we do anything else, we're going to go ahead and bring up this item 7, the Chesapeake Gas Well Permit Appeal. And we're going to get that done. Thank you. Thank you. Let me tell you what I've got in mind here. First off, I'm going to ask for a motion from the council, and well, it looks like I've already got one here. And then we'll look for a second. If we get a motion in a second, then we'll have a motion on the floor. And then we will get some comments from the city council, anybody who wants to talk about it. And then I will open up the public hearing to continue. And I ask that it be limited to those who oppose the motion. Whoever opposes the motion, we'll go back over that. So that's sort of roughly how I want to proceed. I believe that's the quickest and most expeditious way to handle this matter. And again, in honor of your time and your comfort, that's what I'd like to do. And with that, we'll hear a motion regarding item 7, and that's Ms. Branson.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we grant the appeal to Chesapeake that they requested to place the 2 wells on the property.
So you're moving to approve the
Grant the well permits.
Okay. I didn't see who moved here. I think it's Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's for a second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded now. The motion is to move and second to approve the well permit for Chesapeake. And now then, I'm going to open it up for the various council members, anyone that has some comments. Ms. Branson, you're first.
Thank you, Mayor. We really listened 2 weeks ago when about half the room, well, half this number of individuals showed up. My concern is that it was misinterpreted. This was an appeal process from Chesapeake to the city council. The council did not deny the permits. That was based on a city staff level. So I really wanted to make it clear that it wasn't the council that denied the permits. It was the appeal process, which is part of the ordinance that's in place. And because of some of the information that I've heard from citizens and at the grocery store and at the mall and other places, although I'm not advocating this website either as good or bad, but I would like for you all to be aware that there's a website called fwlna.org that Fort Worth has put together. And there is a spreadsheet available out there that if you put in your property size and some other things, that you will see how your royalties will amortize over 20 years. So I think if you're aware of what's going on, you may be surprised, a good way or a bad way, but I think it's worth the visit to that website to see the information that's out there. Other than that, Mayor, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sutton.
Thank you, Mayor. I just really appreciate everyone that emailed all of us. I know I got quite a bit of emails and calls, and I just want to thank you for them. It was very good to hear from y'all. Sort of like Paul Harvey. I don't know if any of y'all know Paul Harvey out there, the rest of the story. There is a rest of the story to this, and so what you heard from Chesapeake was one part of the story, and I hope that you in time listen that there's another part of this story that the council got appraised of. Unfortunately, it's not something that the nature of those factors are something that we can't talk about, or else we will get ourselves into a situation. And there's an old World War II expression for that called loose lips sink ships. Have any of you ever heard that? Well, that's what my daddy taught me. He said, loose lips sink ships. And there's sometimes in some situations where you cannot talk about the other side of the story, or else you'll get yourself in legal trouble. And that's a little bit of what the council's in between right now. But we've heard you. We have heard what's going on. We certainly, as a council, do not want to stand in the way of anyone's royalties. This is the council that pulled together the ordinance for gas well drilling so that you could get the best return for the drilling that's going to take place in here. We're making a decision tonight that this is the decision you want, and we want to do this. Sometimes, though, I think that you'll find in the future it may not have been the best decision. But for right now, it is the right decision, so we're going to make that tonight. So thank you very much for your emails. Thank you for your concern, your comments. We heard you, and we appreciate that very much. That's what makes American government work whenever you guys do what you did, and I thank you.
Mr. Hutchison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, citizens of Haltom City. I was a bit surprised when we got some new information at council 2 weeks ago, and subsequently had to process a lot of that information up to and including the fact that the well permits are for 2 wells, but Chesapeake indicated that they're going to drill up to 18 wells. That was new information to me right at that moment that he said it. Second of all, the very good citizens not only emailed me over the last couple of weeks, but have also made mention at the meeting 2 weeks ago that the land there that Chesapeake is proposing to drill on is perhaps not the best place to have a park situation. And boy, did we find that out over the last 2 weeks. And I heard you. So, in my opinion, having had that new information and having heard it for the first time at council meeting, it wouldn't have been wise or prudent of me to make a decision at that time. My decision to try to delay it so that we could process the information in no way at all has precluded me from denying you permits or denying you royalties. Not at all. And I'm very much in favor of drilling in this city. And I'm very much in favor of the permits to do so. I am in favor of what Chesapeake has offered. I think this is the best deal right now, as Jim has made an indication. And folks, I appreciate you giving us the time, or at least allowing us the time, and then participating in the process by writing us and letting us know so that we could decide those wisely and prudently. So thank you very much.
Ms. Reese.
Thank you, Mayor. I would first like to tell everyone that did call, I do truly appreciate your phone calls. The ones I did not return, I am so sorry.
This is about as loud as it's going to get.
Turn the volume up!
Just speak as close as you can, Kim.
Okay, but I also had numerous emails, and I wasn't able to address each and every one of them, and I tried to address as many as I could. Between going to school, working, and having neighbors come down and visit with me, I've learned a lot. I've learned a whole lot more than I ever anticipated, and something like Mr. Sutton had said, there's issues that come in front of us that we're not able to speak on for whatever reason. And guys, I'm sorry. I wished I could give y'all my opinion on everything because I have a bunch of opinions, and a lot of people don't like to hear them. But I like my opinions, and I have been a very big part on anything Pee Wee related. Our youth associations, and to be real honest, and I've held this back. I have never been for anything close to our railroad tracks. I know we have them all throughout Haltom City, but I have a 3-year-old granddaughter, and I'm not going to allow her close to one simply because I love my baby. She's mine. And I have, raised my children to do that, and I've got my son somewhere up here. He's wanting to speak on some of this. And fortunately, I've taught my children how to do all of this the correct way. And he's got no opinions from me because I've sent him to City Hall. I've said, go up here. I can't do that. But I just want everyone to know I have heard you. I do appreciate it. And by no means did I ignore the people that put me in office. I'm listening. I just can't say everything I want to say for whatever reason. And for that, I do apologize for not being able to say everything I want to. But I do appreciate y'all being here. And y'all are very overwhelming, and I love it. So thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had several people call me with their own ideas and opinions, and the number one idea was that we need parks. Number two was that was not a good placement. And then it came to me that, and from these other people, that the parks need to be close to the children. What's close to the children? The schoolhouse. The schoolhouse has parking. If you take 4 blocks, 2 blocks, a block, which Chesapeake has the power to purchase, if they're going to make $200 million off of this site, they can purchase from, what's that one school? David E. Smith. They could purchase 4 blocks to the west and put a park in, have a mutual parking area. And people say, well, wait, I don't want to sell my house. If they go to the appraisal district and pay you the price that you're paying taxes on, in my case, I can't sell my house for the amount I'm paying taxes on it. And in this down market, if they want to buy me out, they can come on and buy me out because I'm still going to get any royalties once I get royalties. So I'm thinking that I would like for Chesapeake to come into this city and be a good neighbor and look at areas that will make good parks in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 acres. And in looking, I haven't talked with the people, I just looked at it today. Behind Haltom High School, BISD owns 21 acres, totally circled by a street. And they bought it for middle school. Now, I don't know the projections on the growth in that area. Are we already grown out, or will be more growth around 820? Possibly, Chesapeake can contact BISD, and if they want to form a committee, I will get on that committee and look at some park areas close to parking, close to where the children already are. Thank you for calling me. I tried to call you back, and thank you for the emails. I may not have answered all of them. Some of them are still there. But on any issue, contact your city council. Thank you.
Mr. Holcomb.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real briefly, I don't want to get repetitive. A lot of good points have been brought up this evening. I just wanted to take a second and thank each one of you. I see a lot of familiar faces. Some of them I see at the ballparks where my boy plays. A number of you called me this weekend, and I even got 4 of y'all that actually came by my house this weekend. So, you know, you guys know where we live. The city has our addresses. The city has our phone numbers. If I didn't get back to you, please don't hesitate to call me if you really want to talk to me, because it is important that we keep this communication open. It's important to me anyways. So I just wanted to thank each of you for the input, for the concern, and for your time tonight. Thanks.
Mr. Cabano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make this quick. I just want to tell Chesapeake, thank you. I haven't seen a packed room like this since I started city council. It's an honor to be part of this community, to where even if you agree or disagree, you can still get up, talk your piece, and then go home and still, not have to worry about it. There are other places in the world that won't happen. There's an election going on over in Africa right now where there are people dying to vote, and we can get up here and we can talk about it. And I appreciate that. Thank you all for coming out, and just know that the city is going to continue to look for park areas. Hopefully we'll find a better place than the last one, but we'll find something, and it was one of the highlights that we do want to do as a city council. I know we've presented that out to everyone. Thank you.
We've appreciate your patience and hearing the council members. And now, Ms. Wilson, I just have one question for you. Would you mind coming up and the question is, and I've had several residents ask me this. Basically, they want to know when they're going to start getting their money. If we approve this tonight, when can they look for checks in the mail? And most of these have come from residents south of the tracks and north of Broadway. Just that's sort of the middle part there. And my understanding, and you can correct me, my understanding was that these particular two wells basically are not really aimed at that group in particular. They're more going to serve back up in the industrial area, back up on the other side of the tracks. But basically, they just want to know when they're going to start getting their money. I thought maybe you could give them a little hint to set their expectations.
Thank you very much for that opportunity. We, of course, had to take our drilling rig off the schedule pending the outcome of your decision here tonight. But if we have a favorable decision tonight, the drilling rig will go back on the schedule just as soon as we can arrange it, certainly within the next several weeks. So we look forward to a good relationship here and appreciate your consideration.
So they can look for checks when, before the big electric bills start, or?
Yeah, I didn't hear a date there for that, did I?
Checks are all contingent on when we get our pipeline in place in addition to the drilling. So we will be working diligently with City on issues to get that connected and get the gas flowing as quickly as possible to get those checks
I thought
out
you
there.
had a pipeline down there already. Am I mistaken? Yeah, I thought there was already a pipeline out there.
We do have pipeline issues, and as you know, we still have some easements and some crossings that will be addressed.
Well, those are additional pipelines, but I mean,
That's
you already
right.
have a pipeline to
That's
market
right.
right now.
I'll have to verify with my experts on that. Is the pipeline set up to that particular location? It's not complete because we haven't had access to start drilling there, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you just got a few feet there to go.
that's right.
from
What we like to do is communicate closely on where we are on the process, if there are homeowner newsletters, if there are email blogs, and certainly on our own website, we like to keep all neighbors informed of what our process is, to tell you when we're drilling, when we're fracking, when the pipeline is going in, when the division orders would be coming out, so that you can know when to expect royalty checks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where can we find that sign?
You could look at askchesapeake.com. There is not a page up yet for Haltom City, but there will be very soon that will give you progress on this particular site. So the drilling, as I said, needs to get back on our schedule. It will take us a little while to work in when we can do that. As you can imagine, we have to keep our drilling rigs scheduled quite some distance apart, which is why I'm reluctant to commit to an exact date, because we haven't known ourselves whether this was going to be on the schedule or not. But we will work on that quickly. We will find the best ways to keep City Council informed and to keep residents informed and open up a dialogue so that these questions can be answered.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Now then, what I'd like to do, again, in honor of your time and the crowded conditions in here, I'm going to continue the public hearing, but I only want to hear from someone who opposes Chesapeake drilling here. That's the only people I want to hear from, because we've heard all kinds of support for drilling. And I just can't imagine that there's some reason for that we haven't heard. But if we have anybody in the audience who does not want to support,
I have a couple comments I'd like to make.
is this to oppose it? Okay, Mr. Thomas.
You know, I can't hardly walk. Just was crippled last year, so I won't be easy to track down when I get out
Barry,
of here.
if you will, introduce yourself.
I'm Barry Toms,
give your
and I'm a
address.
businessman here in the area, and I make my livelihood and have for the last 12 years, and intend on being here till I'm planted or the Lord takes me home first. And my big concern is like the story of the frog in the warm water, where they gradually turn up the heat, and they've been doing that with money. They're great at it, and they can sell with that money like crazy. But we haven't addressed an issue that's going to impact Haltom City a whole lot more than parks, and that's the roads that are going to be destroyed by 24-ton trucks making 60 to 80 trips a day sometimes. What roads? Haltom Road, McLean. Haltom Road, McLean. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. They're already in bad shape. And if you think it's kind of joking, what's going to happen is, in order to fix these, we already don't have enough money to fix them. But when you start running 24-ton trucks over them 60, 80 times a day and they're talking 18 wells possibly over the next 7, 8 years, we're going to be riding on gravel roads, and it's really not going to be Chesapeake's problem unless we as a community say, hey, listen, before we get started, before this permit gets approved, let's make some assurances that you're going to do your due diligence and take care of the roads, because I'm in the construction business. For a 24-ton truck, I don't build roads. But for a 24-ton truck, it takes a 6-inch minimum concrete road, and if it's got more than the heavy axles, it takes 8-inch thick concrete. Now, that's pretty expensive, and for any of you that have seen what's going on around this area for roads, I only do kitchens. I don't know nothing about roads. But I will tell you now, that's going to get very expensive, and it's going to get expensive quick. Second thing that I haven't heard anything about, it's not in any of the publicated stuff, is the sound abatement. Now, some of you folks' backyards back right up to that in that neighborhood. Now, I have heard what a compression station sounds like. And if you think the trains are bad, man, you wait till you hear those compression stations rumbling and roaring. You'll get used to it in a few years. It ain't that big a deal. But even down on the freeway, they're making them build 18-foot tall concrete sound abatement systems. Now, I do know for a fact that that neighborhood that's going to be directly behind is going to be impacted unbelievable. And if you think your property values aren't where you want them to be now, you wait until somebody tries to come into your neighborhood and buy a house, and they hear this deal rustling and roaring that sounds like 1,000 trains in the middle of the night whenever they have to pump it up. And every one of these stations, especially with 18 wells, it's going to have a pretty big compression station to pump that gas. Now, I don't know if anybody's talked about that, and I'm not an expert on it, but I've done a little research, and those are my two biggest concerns. I want our property values to go up. I want, when the off-ramp to 820 that drops right there around Anderson somewhere, right off of 820, to bring all that retail area, I want us to have roads we can afford that look nice, that ain't tore all to pieces, and I want our property values of our homeowners not to go down just from the noise pollution. Now, the EPA has a level on it, and I do not believe that's been addressed at this point. I may be wrong, but it's something that before anything is signed, before we get in the water, that gets turned up little by little till we don't know it, and always sees them dollar signs, we got to start thinking, wow, this is something I hadn't thought about. And they have thought about it. They're in all these fancy neighborhoods. And in these fancy neighborhoods have their own lawyers. So they went to us individually. They've all banded together. And every one of these other neighborhoods, and this lady can tell you, they're requiring them to do everything I'm telling you right now. We ought to think about it, because we're not banded together. We don't have that much power. That's why we get 1,000 an acre, and they're giving 15 to 18 to 26,000 all over, because we haven't banded together. But before we sign any permits, we really ought to band together and say, hey, we need to make sure the sound's going to be taken care of, and the roads are going to be taken care of. If somebody said $200 million, I would guess that would be a year. So I think they can afford to do something about the roads. I think they can afford to do something about the sound abatement. And I think that before we really get the water turned up till it's boiling and we can't jump out because we're too weak, we need to do it right now.
Thank you, Mr. Toms. Ms. Wilson, you're probably in a much better position to answer some of those. I know we do have noise abatement in our ordinance. And I think we've got street recovery as well. But can you want to just address a couple of those items?
I would be happy to. I don't ever wish to debate one of your residents. I appreciate and respect your opinion. We would be happy to offer additional public meetings where it's appropriate to bring in our experts, whether they're our safety experts, our environmental experts, or our sound experts. I am not an engineer, but I can tell you that we adhere very closely to the codes and the ordinances that your city has set up. And pardon me for not having those memorized. We have a lot of different cities, but most of the ordinances require a set decibel level or a set comparison against ambient, which protects the neighborhoods and protects the residents, regardless of whether they're fancy neighborhoods or whether they're ordinary neighborhoods like what I would live in as well. We are very concerned about protecting the rights of our neighbors. Certainly, we're an intrusion in some neighborhoods, particularly if there are houses very closely to the site, just the same as any construction site would be, where you've got temporary inconvenience caused by construction going on there. Most residences in most neighborhoods and most cities have found that the fear of the unknown has been much greater than the reality. We don't want our phone ringing with complaints any more than City Council does. We take great lengths to make sure that we've got as many happy residents and we're good neighbors as we are in any other city. We deploy a very extensive public relations, public affairs team who are assigned to neighborhoods, whose numbers are available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that if there is an issue, we can respond to it very immediately. We do employ the latest and greatest in sound abatement equipment. It depends on the location, it depends on the drilling rig, it depends on the time that we're going to be there, whether it's constructing acoustical walls as a sound blanket, whether it's wrapping our engines or using mufflers on our noisy equipment, or whether it's bringing in a rig that's specifically designed for neighborhoods. Again, those decisions are made on a variety of factors. To my knowledge, we have no plans for a compressor station on that site, certainly. I can't tell you tonight what our plans for compression may be. Again, I might have experts out on the steps somewhere who couldn't make it in here, but that would be part of our neighborhood education that we would work with you on. And again, to the sound, we don't want those phone calls and complaints. We don't want you calling us at midnight. We're not going to be noisy. I can't say that there won't be some temporary interruption or inconvenience when we've got our construction phase going on, but we'll be as sensitive as possible.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Now,
I believe your roads are already addressed in a road maintenance agreement, if I'm not mistaken, where,
I believe that's the case, yes.
Again, based on exactly what the ordinance is in this particular city, whether we post a bond, whether we videotape roads prior to our activity, both before and after, whether we post the bond, whether we pay for actual damages if there are, that's all contingent upon how the city works with us on that. And I think if you talk to other cities, other city managers, other city mayors and residents, you'll find we have an excellent track record in that regard as well.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. All right, with that, I will ask one more time, is there anyone who wants to speak against the motion that we have to approve the gas well drilling? Anyone who opposes that who would like to speak? I see and hear none, so I'm going to close the public hearing. And excuse me? Oh, do we have someone? Mr. Lewis, do you oppose the drilling? Well, the motion on the floor is to approve the drilling, and I've asked for anybody who opposes that motion to speak. Otherwise, because we've heard most. Yeah. Okay. At that site. Okay. All right. I'll hear this. Please make it very brief.
I'll be brief. Just ask Jim. No, he wouldn't vouch for me there. Blakely. No, he wouldn't vouch for me either. Okay, I'll try to be brief. I would just like to appeal to you to do the right thing.
Dan, you need to introduce yourself.
I am Dan Lewis. I live at 4812 Springview Court since '87.
And speak directly into the microphone.
Right
They're hard to hear
into
out
the
there.
microphone.
Thank you.
Okay. I was out of town 2 weeks ago, so I couldn't speak then, but I would like to say we elected you guys to do what you feel is the right thing. You're representing 4,500 citizens, even though, okay, only 30,000 are voters. You're representing all the several hundred employers and businesses here, not just the Chesapeake Energy, who has, as their suits admitted last week, virtually unlimited resources to oppose any legal action you want to have. You've got to consider that. They've launched obviously a pretty elaborate PR campaign. I got a letter in the mail myself this last week saying that my property, which is 2 miles to the south, would be affected of that well. Is that possible? That they would drill 2 miles to south? I think they're going another direction. And I think many people here got letters that were a bit misleading in that respect. But nonetheless, I would like to appeal to the city council to do what you feel is right. That's what we elected you for. That's, regardless of the media, the PR campaign inspired mobocracy of, what do we have, 300 people here right now. You also are representing the thousands of voters to do the right thing. All right? Thank you.
Folks, Mr. Lewis has this thing. This is
I turn around and look for my friend and neighbor Jack when you say that.
All right.
I'm just Dan.
How am I supposed to use this thing? Okay. All right. One last time, I hope this is the last time. One last time, is there anyone who wants to speak against the gas well drilling? I can't hear what they're saying. Can somebody interpret?
They're saying if there's anybody come up front. Anybody?
Okay. Okay. Is it safe for us to go ahead and take a vote? Okay. All right. Okay. Then what? No. We've got a motion to approve the gas well drilling, and I'm going to close the public hearing, and we now have a motion, and we need to vote. So I'll ask the council now to go ahead and register your vote, and that is unanimous. Tell you what, folks, on the suspicion that some of you may not want to be standing here for the rest of the meeting, I'm gonna go ahead and take a 5-minute break here to let you sort yourselves out. Those maybe 10 minutes to get us to sort out. Yeah.
Before the audience leaves, may I make one parting comment, please?
Go. Yeah. Listen up here.
I would like to thank the council. I'd like to thank the city manager. I would like to thank all of you for your support in this. We heard what you said, Mr. Clark, about helping support additional parkland. We would like to offer a challenge to the residents of Haltom City. If you can raise a like amount, Chesapeake Energy will contribute $250,000 toward new parkland here in Haltom City. If you can rally behind this and raise the money within a year's period of time, and hopefully that will be a win-win situation for everybody here.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll meet back here at 10 minutes till 8. Executive Director Vic Soom, he's the Executive Director of the Tarrant Regional Transportation Coalition. And Vic, you have a presentation for us tonight?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all very much for allowing me this opportunity to visit with you a little bit about some of our transportation needs. Let me start off
Vic,
with just...
Chris, would you mind closing those doors so we can hear? They've got some conversations going out there. Thank you, sir. Okay. Sorry about that.
Sure, that's quite all right. Let me start off with just telling you a little bit about the Tarrant Regional Transportation Coalition before we get into the heart of the presentation. You all joined in the beginning when we formed in 2004, so many of you are quite familiar with it, but for those of you who aren't, we are a nonprofit organization supported wholly by membership dues. We have 74 members, 37 cities, 4 counties, 6 chambers of commerce, and 17 or 18 businesses now, and 9 miscellaneous entities within our region who are our members. Our reason for being is that we think by joining together and educating ourselves about transportation needs and forming a consensus position on issues and policies relative to transportation, that we can be more effective. It's like speaking with one voice instead of many conflicting voices. And so far we have been relatively effective, and membership is growing, and our meetings are well attended. So hopefully we're beginning to have some impact in terms of educating folks about some of the transportation needs and some of the things that we can do to address them. I think what concerns people most in our region are the traffic congestion we encounter and the delay that congestion causes us as drivers. Intuitively, we know that congestion is getting worse and delays are getting longer because we encounter it every day in our driving. Study confirms that our intuition is right. The Texas Transportation Institute has been studying congestion and delay in the country's largest urban areas since 1982. At that time, we had an average of 13 hours per driver delay per year. Now that's up to 58 hours per year. That's almost a week and a half of our lives every year we spend sitting in traffic going nowhere. It's the third highest amount of delay from roadway congestion in the United States. And that's wasted time. That's time we'll never get back. Indicating that this issue is a newsworthy one, last September when the last annual report from TTI came out, made the front page in the Star-Telegram and in the Dallas Morning News. So people are concerned about traffic congestion and the associated delay. This slide shows you the congestion footprint today in our region. The darker the shading, the more congestion. But you can see that there's a pretty good sized footprint in our region today. And this shows you what it's going to look like in 2030. And as you can see, it's getting worse. What causes this congestion? Population growth drives the dramatic increase we see in traffic volume, and the pace and volume of this population growth simply overwhelm our transportation system. We can't add enough capacity fast enough to accommodate the increase in traffic this population growth generates. Our region gained more population than any other region in the country last year, or from 2006 to 2007, which is the last year for which the data is available. We gained 162,250 people, more than Atlanta, Phoenix, or Houston, which are the only other regions in the country that grew over 100,000 last year. Most people don't realize that we are now the 4th largest region in the United States. Only New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago are larger. Our population exceeds 6 million. And it's going to be over 9 million within 25 years. So why should we be concerning ourselves with this subject? There are 2 major reasons. One has to do with our quality of life, and one has to do with our economy. Let's put into perspective what this looks like. We in the western half of the region are going to have a population 800,000 larger than the eastern half of the region has today. Why should that be alarming? Well, it's simply because we don't have the infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure that in the west that there exists today in the east. There's many more freeway lane miles in the eastern half of the region. There's a 93-mile commuter rail service that's in the eastern half of the region. So what you have to do is you have to take and add 800,000 people to what exists in the east, and you know how congested that part of the region is. And then you superimpose that over here without all that extra highway mileage and the extra rail service, and you can see what we're headed for. And it's not pretty. One indicator of that is that we think that a 20-minute commute today in 2025 is going to take you 52 minutes. So think about that, and that's what we mean when we're talking about quality of life. Another thing that compounds the situation is that if you look at the surrounding counties to the south and west of us, Johnson, Parker, and Wise, there's going to be a lot of growth in that area, but the population growth is going to exceed the job growth by a factor of 3. Well, what that translates into is more and more commuter traffic. So that simply is going to compound the situation. How many of you have ever heard of Tower 55? This is Tower 55. Down at the far end of this slide, you really can't see it. Tower 55 is just a little 2 or 3 story building in the southwest quadrant of I-30 and I-35W. But it's the busiest railroad crossing in the United States, the most congested railroad crossing there is. And it has lots of implications. We put this slide up here just to illustrate what it does in terms of adding to the air pollution and health consequences of congestion. But it also has other consequences, including homeland security issues, because some of those tanker cars are filled with things that you wouldn't want to ignite. This is a big problem because it's a very expensive problem to fix, but it's one we have to address. This is just a view of what we think the future looks like, unless we invest more in our transportation infrastructure. So we've talked a little bit about some of the quality of life issues. Let's talk a little bit about some of the economy issues. Today, we're incurring $4.2 billion economic cost in lost productivity and wasted fuel. This economic loss is going to grow to $6.6 billion by 2030. That is far more than we would have to invest to fix the problem, which is, to me, kind of the definition of bad public policy. There are other things just besides dollars and cents. You know, employees that are stuck in traffic all the time, trying to get from one place to another in their job, or even getting home to relieve the babysitter, whatever the crisis might be, their morale, their productivity are all adversely affected by delays associated with roadway congestion. It causes employee stress, impacts morale, reduces productivity, it slows the movement of commodities, which adversely impacts commerce, and it deters economic growth and development because businesses don't want to expand or move to a region plagued with traffic gridlock. So just summarizing the reasons that we should care about transportation and why we should be advocating increased investment. Number one is time. Time is perhaps our most precious commodity. You know, we just have to ask ourselves, how much time are we willing to give up with our family or friends because we're sitting in traffic going nowhere? Another has to do with health. Without good health, what do we have? Traffic congestion is a major contributor to high emissions and poor air quality, which impose real health risks, particularly to the youngest and the oldest in our population. And as we said, we cannot sustain our economy if we can't move people and goods around our region efficiently. We really can't afford to risk our economic prosperity as a region. Our challenge in addressing the region's mobility crisis is not that we do not know what is needed. We do know. We have a regional mobility plan that spells out what is needed to sustain our economy and quality of life. The plan tells us, for example, that we need to add 3,444 miles of new freeway and tollway lanes, add 626 miles of new managed lanes, and add 250 miles of new rail service. This is the freeway and tollway component of the regional transportation plan. This is the managed lanes component of the regional transportation plan, and this is the rail component. This is, as you know, a plan is a living document, and this is sort of the next iteration of what the rail plan is going to look like. It's now called Rail North Texas. The lines you see in black are either built or they are funded and in some form of development or construction. The lines in red are unfunded. That's the 250 miles we need to add. And why this is so important is because with the amount of population growth that we're experiencing, we simply can't accommodate all of the new traffic on our roads. If you look at the major travel corridors in our region, it's not feasible to expand them infinitely because you have development right up to the edge of the right-of-way. So we have to accommodate a greater portion of the new traffic that's coming with the growth than we do of the existing traffic associated with the current population with transit. So we have to use transit more than we have been in the past if we're going to accommodate traffic and avoid intolerable levels of congestion on our roadways. The problem, again, isn't that we don't know what to do, it's that we can't afford it. We need to invest $130 billion over the next 20 years to maintain and expand our transportation infrastructure. We're going to have about $71 billion, so that means we're $59 billion short. This slide shows you in the left column the major components of the Regional Transportation Plan. In the middle column is what's called the financially constrained plan, or it's the type of plan that all metropolitan planning areas have to have by federal law. It says that this is what we can afford to build over the planning horizon. So by 2030, we're going to have $71 billion available for those various elements of the plan. On the right side is what's called the needs-based plan. That's what we should build if we don't want the congestion to continue to worsen as it has been. And that's what's $59 billion that we don't have. Now, if you'll look down towards the bottom of that under rehabilitation costs, you'll see the big number, $32 billion. Well, what's happening is our existing infrastructure is aging, and concrete doesn't last forever. Some people think it does, but it really doesn't. And so we are facing, in our region, and it's very much true in other metropolitan regions as well, huge costs for major replacement of worn-out infrastructure. So that's a big liability, but it's something we're just going to have to face up to. Okay, let's talk just a little bit about how we got into this situation. Why don't we have the resources we need to make the improvements and the investment necessary to keep our infrastructure sound and healthy and able to handle the growth? One of the big reasons is we're spoiled. We have undertaxed ourselves for transportation for years and years and years and years. I don't know how many of you have ever looked at the price of motor fuel in other developed modern economies. I don't care if you're talking about England, any Western European country, any Pacific Rim country, even Canada. You'll notice that the cost of the motor fuel is very, very much higher than it is here. The reason for that is not because the raw product or the refinery costs or the distribution costs are more particularly. It's because the tax is more. The portion of the price of motor fuel in these other developed economies, 75% is tax. In our country, it's about 15%. It has been for years because the price of motor fuel is pretty high today. It's really about 12%. But the point is not that we need to increase our tax burden by fivefold, but we probably do need to increase it a little bit. When other countries are paying 5 times as much as we are, we're a little bit out of sync. So we have underinvested, and we need to face up to that fact. There are a few other reasons that I probably should mention. We haven't raised the rates of our motor fuel tax for years and years and years. It's been since 1991 at the state level and 1993 at the federal level. And the gas tax is not a sales tax. It doesn't grow with the economy. It's an excise tax. So if you're paying $2, $3, or $4 a gallon for gasoline, you're still paying 38.4 cents in tax. So what's happening is the cost of repairing roads. If you look at the component costs of road maintenance and road construction, you're looking at steel, concrete, construction machinery, asphalt, those kinds of things. And they've increased in price 33% in the last 3 years. That's an average of 11% a year. That's a lot more than the cost of a typical basket of consumer goods that you and I buy to support our families. So high inflation rates and flat revenues equal loss of purchasing power. So that's a major problem. Wait a minute. I think there are probably a few other things there I should. Okay, so what can we do about it? Well, one of the things that we're trying to get people to do is to understand some of the basic dynamics and understand a little bit about our transportation system. And when you do that, if you'll just simply think about it, and if it makes sense to you, if the story I'm telling you rings true, you need to do something about it. And what we need to do is we need to tell the people that make the decisions that we need to invest more in our transportation infrastructure. And for the most part, that's our state legislators. To some extent, our Congress members, but we have a much better chance of influencing our state legislators than we do our Congress members. So what we're encouraging people to do is to talk to their state representatives and their state senators and just simply say that transportation is an important issue to us. We need to invest more, and we're willing to pay a little bit more for better service. Some of the specific things we're trying to do is to ensure a better balance of tax and fee revenue on the one hand and tolls on the other hand, because what's happening right now is that all of our tax and fee revenue for transportation is being consumed by maintenance. So there's nothing left to expand the system to accommodate new population growth. That's why you hear so much about toll roads, because tolls are the only source of revenue that we have to expand the system. And what that means, if we continue with this policy without advocating for a better balance of revenue, is that we're going to wake up 25, 30 years from now, and we're not going to be able to drive anywhere without paying a toll. And I'm not sure that's what people want. I kind of think it's not. Another thing that's important to us is to figure out a way to fund this regional rail expansion, and we're going to need some state authority probably to do that. There's a committee of the Regional Transportation Council that's working on this right now and trying to get a consensus position on what that should be. And they're getting pretty close, I think. I think probably within 30, 45 days they'll have an answer. So we need to support that. We need to tell our legislators to stop diverting transportation revenue and funding to other uses. They divert about $1.6 billion a biennium right now. We need to index the motor fuels tax so it tracks inflation, so that it acts like a sales tax. We need to capitalize the rail relocation fund so that we can do fix problems like Power 55. And we need to recapitalize the Texas Mobility Fund, which is now totally committed to debt service. So we need to put some more of the highway funds that are going into the general fund now into the mobility fund. So what TRTC tries to do is to help us all become more informed about this. We have monthly meetings where we have a focus topic each time that educates folks about a new aspect of transportation that they perhaps don't know about. And then we encourage folks to contact their state representatives and state senators to encourage more investment in transportation. This is our website, trtcmobility.org, and there's lots and lots and lots of information on that website. So I encourage you to use it. That's my contact information. You're welcome to contact me anytime. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have if I can. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vic. And just for the residents' information, Mr. Muir, our city manager, makes all those meetings.
He does.
There. And
he's a faithful attender, I'll tell you.
Yeah. We're very interested in that, and we thank you for that presentation. Any questions for Mr. Soon? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Did you just ask us to ask our congressman to raise our taxes?
I believe that's what I heard.
Yeah, I did.
Next on the agenda is we're going to recognize Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Month. I have a proclamation to present. Mr. Sanders, you want to meet me? Then? This is a proclamation declaring Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Month, whereas today society is finding more citizens involved in motorcycling on the roads of our country, and whereas motorcyclists are roughly unprotected and much more likely to be injured or killed in a crash than other vehicle drivers, and whereas campaigns have helped inform riders and motorists alike on motorcycle safety issues to reduce motorcycle-related risk, injuries, and most of all, fatalities through a comprehensive approach to motorcycle safety, and whereas it is the responsibility of all who put themselves behind the wheel to become aware of motorcyclists, regarding them with the same respect as any other vehicle traveling the highways of this country, and whereas urging all of our community to become aware of the inherent danger involved in operating a motorcycle and give the operator the respect on the road they deserve. Now, therefore, I, William Blandford, Mayor of the City of Haltom City, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2008 as Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Month in Haltom City, Texas. Mr. Sanders? Thank you. Thank you. Want to say a few words?
The main thing I would like to say is that with the price of gasoline, even before we raise our taxes, that there is a lot more motorcyclists out there now because of the miles per gallon and this and that, and a lot of them are not that well trained to even be riding them, you know, in the first place. They're out there, you can't see them half the time. Some of us got some pretty loud pipes that helps out, but not legally, but you know, and a lot of them are not the one percenters like what you know see on TV and the movies. You know, a lot of us are mom and pop. We have a lot of women riders in our club. There's a lot of other women independent riders out there, and it doesn't take much to put one off into the gravel a little bit. So, like the railroad tracks always say, stop, look, and listen. What I try to say is look, listen, and look. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Next up is the monthly financial report for March. Joel Welch, our Finance Director. Joel?
We'll get this thing where I can handle it in just a minute. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the City Council. Enclosed in your packet for your study and review is the monthly financial report, and this is the report for the midpoint of the fiscal year. A little different approach to it this time, and from here on out, this is the first month that I actually look at the progress year to date and begin to make some educated guesses as to how we will progress over the course of the balance of the year. And so these, of course, being the first guesses, will be subject to change month by month as we go. And I'll touch briefly on them tonight. I think that you folks have probably had enough presentations without me going into great detail. But nevertheless, I will touch on just a very couple of things. Mr. Cabano had asked me a question in the workshop, and I had started to answer it, and we ran out of time. And in fact, having an extra minute or two to think about it allowed me to collect my thoughts. One of the areas that I had indicated to the council that I thought was an area of both interest and concern was the area of franchise fee collections. Of course, we've not seen the electric franchise fee come in like we expected to see it, and that, of course, has been due to the weather. But we'd also seen a bit of a shortfall in our communications franchise tax, and Mr. Cabano had asked me if that was due to, if I remember correctly, cell phone activity. Internet phone. I suspect it could be internet phone, and it also could be cell phone activity, because I think what I've been seeing is the most definite trend in terms of the fees related to communications usage has been a decline in the traditional wire-based long-distance service. And seeing that in the form of lower fees coming in from the usage of those services. So I would certainly think that people are using their cell phones for more of their long-distance calling, and I wouldn't be the slightest bit surprised if they're not using more and more the internet phone services, which is also not going to generate for us any franchise fee revenue. But also looking across the general fund, we're at the point of the year where we have said, go ahead, Mr. Sutton. Yeah, go ahead.
What you just said just interested me. There's a lot of fees you pay in cell phones. I mean, and when I look at my cell phone bill, I see Texas this, Texas that, city, all these different fees. Doesn't the city get one of those fees in there for the cell phone bill?
We will get a local sales tax for applicable parts of your bill.
Okay.
But as far as a lot of those taxes, are state taxes. There are taxes attached to it for low-income services. And there's a lot. There's a tremendous number.
Well,
of
some of it
fees
was for
attached.
911 emergency services too.
Yes, there's
Doesn't
also
that
the
go to the
911.
local community?
That goes for provision of local 911 service, but it doesn't come to us.
That's, if I remember correctly, that's to help build the infrastructure so that they can tell where a cell phone is when a 911 call is made, not necessarily paying for 911 service, but so they can get that infrastructure built. Now, whether it gets ever built or not, I don't know, because you have to be transferred 3 or 4 times depending on where you are at any given point to 911.
Okay.
Because I've had it personally happen.
It is not perfectly developed yet, but my understanding is in places they are able to triangulate fairly accurately. There could still stand to be some improvements in the accuracy.
Well, I've tracked down about 3/4 of those fees, but I haven't got all of them yet, so I wasn't sure if you could short-circuit some of my work and figure out if one of those came to the municipal.
Terribly
I guess not.
few of them
I was
come
not
to
aware
the-
of it in the budget.
Yeah, terribly few of them come to the municipal level. Terribly
Thanks.
few. But otherwise, as I mentioned, we've gotten about 90% of our property taxes. This is normal for this time of year. And from here on out, you'll begin to see the fund balance and the general fund gradually begin to decline. This is the high point of the fiscal year. It is normal for the fund balance to look very healthy, and it does. But also over the balance of this year, as we gear up with our summer activities, our good weather activities, we will begin to spend more of the fiscal year budget. And because we've already realized most of our property taxes, you'll see the balances drop down. But I'm still anticipating, at my first guess, that in fact, if we continue to be faithful stewards, that what we had expected to be a reduction in the fund balance may accidentally work out to be an increase in the fund balance. And I'll be keeping the council apprised of this each month as we go forward. Certainly as we get going, things can change, but I'll be giving you a blow-by-blow as we go forward, and you'll be able to detect the trend going forward from here. As far as the water and sewer fund, if you had looked on page Roman numeral 5 of the executive summary, I detailed some actions that we had taken to effect some savings in the water and sewer fund over the balance of the year. That was addressing about 2/3 of what I had seen as needed action to be taken. We're still working on the remaining third, but we've addressed about 2/3 of the issues, and we still have some work to do there. But it's helping the situation. I would love to say that sales are improving, but they're not. They're just not. I've seen the purchased water for the latest bill, and we're not making any ground. We're about the same place as we were last year.
Joel,
yes, sir.
are you factoring in for your expectations for the rest of the year continued lower levels of demand for water as we've seen for the past year?
Yes, sir.
I mean, we've been kind of holding our breath, hoping that it would pick up, but it hasn't, as you just pointed out. And I'm just wondering if we're making some contingency plans for it might not.
Yeah, if you when you look at the statements themselves farther into the document, you'll notice that my projections for the year end for the sales only indicate a nominal growth over the prior year. And in fact, the nominal growth is coming from the last rate increase, but in fact, I'm expecting overall unit sales to be flat to slightly lower, which is eaten into the impact of last year's rate increase. So I am anticipating that, and our targets are set such that what we're working on from the expenditure side of the equation is expecting that revenues will continue to be substandard or poorly performing for the balance of the year.
Okay. Mr. Hutchinson?
Yeah, Mr. Welch, I'm wondering if there's I guess the best way to say this is maybe because the rate, is increased, but we still have stagnant growth, so we call that, in Reaganomics terms, we call that stagflation, or in the 70s terms. But maybe it's time we change the paradigm. Maybe our expectations are too high, and maybe we should lower that. That's just a suggestion. You guys, you do a better job of anticipating the rate of growth and the rate of expenditures and the rate of buying as opposed to not buying than we obviously can. But we're hearing this on a monthly basis, and it continues to go down. So maybe it's time to change the paradigm. That's just a suggestion.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah, we are trying to do just that with a lot of our attempts to get our arms around the financial situation in the Water and Sewer Fund, and we are addressing the cost side because we don't see a situation on the revenue side where we're anticipating sales moving up with the weather patterns being as they are, with the overall economic situation being as it is, and we are having to look at where we can grab efficiencies, where we can grab economies each step along the way. We don't, at this point in time, with the exception of any pass-through activity from Fort Worth Water, we would be hard-pressed to be able to press for any further rate relief, at least for now. And, in a few months I may have a different opinion on it, but at this point, beyond the whatever Fort Worth Water does to us in the process this year, we just really have to try to cinch our belts a bit.
Mr. Cabana?
Joel, on page 6 here, V1, you've got further immediate proactive corrective action is required. Is that what you're talking about, cost containment?
Yeah, what I was talking about, where
Okay.
we're continuing the effort there, that we're, by my estimation, about 2/3 of the way through. We need to finish that process, but we're about 2/3 of the way through at this point.
Okay, so
So
that's
we
our
will continue to work on this.
that's our right now. That's our only line of thought is cost containment.
As I've been kind of mentioning, I'm rather reluctant to come back to the council and ask for rate relief right now.
And I think that's if I remember correctly, because you said it was, if I remember, and tell me if I'm wrong. This is the fund where we upped the rate and it had a negative effect of what we thought would happen.
To an extent, it did, yes, sir.
Okay.
I really do believe that our last rate increase, which we believed was really necessary and appropriate, also had a coupled with the weather, may have had a sticker shock effect. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Sutton?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on that, Blake. Great observation. If you look on the charts on page 24 you provided, thank you, by the way, for them. It shows the year-to-date sales shown in gallons, and it broke apart with the commercial and the residential. And we see it kind of a steady, nominal decline in our commercial water, which I think that we need to figure out what's going on there. It's not very big, though. It's just a small drop, and it may just be the business cycle, the different types of businesses that are here at Haltom City. But you definitely see in the residential that in the 06-07, we had a significant, like a 20% drop in water usage. And to me, that chart says, gosh, the people are conserving water. That was whenever we had that big push to conserve water, and that chart shows me that people were conserving water.
And coupled with the desire to conserve water, a year of 50 inches of rain
Yeah.
goes a long way toward reducing the need to irrigate.
Now, I understand the problem we have is we have fixed cost in the city of providing that water. And whenever the revenue goes down below that fixed cost of providing the water, then you either have to up the rates or lower the cost of providing that water. And that's what we're dealing with right now.
Yes, sir, that's true, and it's important that we consider as we're analyzing this situation, that you have a fixed cost of operation that you have to protect. That there's the variable component, there's the fixed component, and there's a certain part of that fixed that you just have to protect. You have obligations that you've made to other people.
Well,
And
you're talking about the purity of the water, right? I mean,
Well, we're
how
talking
pure
about-
you're going to deliver
yeah,
the water.
Yeah, we're talking about meeting our state requirements for the quality of the water.
Right.
We're also talking about the promises that we've made to our creditors.
Right, for the
You know, in
bonds that
terms
were
of
issued on
making-
those.
yeah, for our
for
bonds and
previous
certificates.
expenses.
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
We still have to make our debt service payments, and we still have to meet certain coverage requirements that we've promised to make or to meet. And so we have to balance these things. It's a very delicate balancing act to deal with trying to make sure that we maintain quality service, quality water, and keep all of our promises and obligations that we've made.
Well, here's the point. We're buying water from Fort Worth. We don't generate this in Haltom City. So we're always held captive by what Fort Worth is going to charge us for that water, right?
Each year we do have,
And we're
we
more or
do
less
have
held
to look
captive
very
by what Fort
carefully.
Worth says is if you guys need to conserve, we pretty much have to bow over and conserve, or at least put out the effort to conserve water if Fort Worth is asking us to do that. Is that right?
That is actually something Fort Worth is asking us to do, and Fort Worth is asking all of the wholesale customers, and Fort Worth themselves are working on measures to conserve water. That is across the
And
system.
that's because this whole aquifer, that they anticipate that we may not have the water to meet the needs 15, 20 years down the road for the people that are moving in here. And that's where that's coming from.
This has been something that actually the North Central Texas region, and I can't remember where it was I'd heard this. I think someone else has said this just recently, and it may have been in this council setting. But the reality is, when you get out of the North Central Texas region, the Metroplex region, around the state, people use much less water than we do. We are very much water hogs. We really
On
are.
a per capita basis, you're talking?
On a per capita basis in this area, we are
But how
very
can you
heavy
measure
water
what
users.
somebody's using out of a well, though?
Well, and we're not talking. They're not talking about what's coming out of wells, except for the commercial wells. You know, when you compare what we do to what Austin does, to what San Antonio does, to what Houston does,
I see.
to what other areas that we are comparable to, they indicate that our water usage per capita is very high, and at a state level, they're not very sympathetic to our cries for more reservoirs and more water supply. In fact, they're saying that, you know, when Austin looks at us, they say, you need to economize first before we discuss with you further water supplies.
Okay. Well, it's a rock and a hard place.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Just briefly now, I noticed on one part here you saying that you predict we're going to be at 13.4% cash on hand. This is the estimated cash liquidity, and that's that by statute that's supposed to be 20%. Is that correct?
The council established goal by resolution is 20%.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is the amount that the creditors are looking at. They expect us to be making efforts to get to that 20% level, and we're at 13.4. Now, we've been below this, have we not?
Yes, sir, we have.
In the last few years.
Yes, sir, we
kind of
have.
made them nervous.
And we had built it up to about 18% before the last fiscal year and this fiscal
so
year.
we still got a few challenges, but one of the things Mr. Watkins just pointed out to me is talking about the drilling using water. Well, so based on what we just did earlier, we would expect to sell Chesapeake some more water. I don't know if that'll make a dent in it, you know.
Chesapeake has hydrant meters even now. They already have hydrant meters checked out through the city, and they're already using city water.
Okay.
In their work.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We sort of interrupted your presentation.
Mayor, it's perfectly all right. I would much rather get the questions as I go, rather than save them until the end. But in fact, I primarily wanted to talk about the water and sewer fund. I did want to indicate that the drainage utility at the midpoint of the year, I'm anticipating its performance to be better than expectations. We were anticipating drawing the fund balance by about $130,000 this fiscal year. The draw on it will probably be, I'm saying certainly less than $50,000, perhaps even a little better, and I'll let you know about that as we go each month henceforth. As far as the other funds go, the only one that I did want to mention that we are keeping a very close eye on and we're going to have to work with, of course, is the crime district. We began the year weaker than we anticipated. There had been a bit of a tail off of sales tax at the end of last fiscal year, so we started lower this year than we expected to start, and so we're going a little deeper into the deficit position than we had originally anticipated, and we want to try to keep very, very tight control on this. It's going to come out. It will come out just as we said it would. But we're going to have to be a little more diligent and a little more careful with it as we bring it back out. But it will come out. It's just right now it's driven a little deeper than what we anticipated, and so it's going to be something that we're going to be keeping a very close eye on, and we're going to have to be taking some action with it over the course of the balance of the fiscal year. And then that's all I really needed to cover with the council tonight.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion. Ms. Branson.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we accept the financial report as presented.
Mr. Sutton.
That's for a second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the monthly financial report. Any further discussion? Please register your vote. That is unanimous. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. It's considered to be self-explanatory and will be enacted by the council with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. Approval of the consent agenda authorizes the city manager to implement each item in accordance with staff or board recommendations. And tonight the consent agenda consists of items 2, 3, 4, and 5. Sir, Mr. Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda or approve the consent agenda, which it consists of items 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For a second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion on the dais? Please register your vote. That is unanimous. You guys keep up? Okay. Okay, next up, under the regular agenda, this is a public hearing. It's final plat P-023-07 and P-001-08. Conduct a public hearing and consideration and or action on the application of James Stratton, CEI Engineering, for preliminary and final plat of Lot 2, Block 1, Lancaster Edition, being a tract of land out of the Hugh F. Largent Survey, abstract number 959, containing approximately 2.215 acres of land on the east side of the 4,000 block of Denton Highway. Mr. Pliska, you want to tell us all about this one?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, citizens of Haltom City. Like you said, Mayor, this is a preliminary and final plat. The applicant, Aaron's Rent, is presenting this tonight. It will be a retail rental facility. The proposed facility is expected to be 10,000 square feet. This has come before you under preliminary plat. It was earlier with the car wash that is to the south of this. This is a while back, therefore they're having to resubmit the preliminary plat. This was brought before the Planning and Zoning Commission at their April 8th, 2008 meeting. There was a large discussion on the drainage and or the landscaping at this facility too. So tonight you have a new site plan indicating additional trees to the north portion of the facility. And their decision was unanimous to approve this plat. Therefore, I'm formally submitting for your approval the 11/17 preliminary plat, the final plat, site plan information, landscaping information, and drainage information, should you have any questions on that. I stand to answer any questions, Mayor.
All right. Any questions from the dais for Mr. Pliska on this item? This is a preliminary and final plat.
Mayor, Mr. Yee with CEI is here to represent his clients.
Thank you, sir. You want to come up, make a statement, or are you just going to be available if we need you to answer any questions? Okay, all right, thanks. Mr. Hutchison.
Yes, I'd like to talk to the applicant if I could, please. Mr. Yee.
Please, Mr. Yee. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you would, for the record.
Thank you.
here, state your name and your
Yeah,
company.
sure. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jeremy Yee with CEI Engineering. Address is 3030 LBJ Freeway, Suites 1250, Dallas, Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Yee, for being here tonight. This is done in sort of complement, and because my memory is fresh, because we just got finished approving the Calvary Church just to the north of you, and we had some
south.
Like I said, just to the south. I think I said whatever. Anyway, the other north, right? The other way north. I'm turned around here, but anyway, the drainage issues pose a significant problem. And I notice on your site plan you've got parking on that north end, which will face. And so, in my opinion, the drainings will happen at a lot faster rate. So if you would explain how this drainage map works and how you worked in complement with the church in dealing with these drainage issues.
Let me answer, understand your question correctly. You're saying that water coming from a property to the church will be draining faster than right now?
Well, since you've got parking on that side, it will exit faster, in other words.
It will entering the church property, faster.
That is correct.
You're paving the property right now instead of, it's a pervious area before. And,
that is correct.
And I guess I try to understand your question. Are you saying, are we trying to prevent that velocity of the stormwater?
Well, I'm not sure that the landscaping that you've got is going to be adequate enough to handle the more rapid drainage problems in case we have a terrible storm.
The water coming from our property toward the church properties is going to two locations. One is a concrete flume to the southeast corner of our property, and also the driveway that we tie into the church property. So basically, those water is going toward that church property from that two locations, and it's not going to the grass area. So it's not really.
So there's not going to be any flooding issues with respect to the church? Then?
No.
Okay.
No.
I see your plan here. I'm just wondering how this complements the plan from the church.
I do not have a church grading or drainage plan in front
Perhaps
of me, but
Mr. Pliska could probably explain that to you. I'm not asking for a great explanation here about how the church plans and this plan fit together, James. I'm just worried about if there's going to be any flooding on the church property because of the way the situation is right here.
Yes, sir. And I'd glad to answer that. If you'll look at your site plan that you have, and if you'll notice to the northern portion of the site, see where planning and zoning asked for those additional trees? Okay? That is a completely grassy area. They're adding no more impermeable surface other than what you see to the south. And the only access point that you see is that mutual access easement that you see right there that goes into the church. Okay?
Okay.
So their drainage is going to be, portions of it are going to go into Denton Highway, and then, of course, if you look at the drainage information that we gave you, like he discussed, that's the reason for leaving this landscaped undeveloped area to the north at this time, so it will not impact anything to the south of it. But also, see, there is going to have very limited, other than this access easement, onto that particular plat.
Okay.
Right.
I wondered if we were going to create an extra, maybe the city does need an extra reservoir or something like that for water so that we can conserve water. I don't know. I'm just kidding. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions regarding this? Mr. Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to commend CEI for a nice set of plans and also for doing the parking lot and the joint venture with the church there on the backside.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's going a little bit above and beyond to be a good neighbor, and
Yep.
I'm sure they appreciate it.
Yeah, and rents do not need that much of the property, and might as well just give them the easement and they can park there. That's the intention behind it.
Right. I'm sure they use it every Sunday. Thanks, sir.
Yes.
And
Any other questions?
and Wednesdays.
Any other questions from the dais? All right, thank you, Mr. Yee. And
Thank you.
now then, go ahead and open this up, open up the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak about these preliminary and final plat, please come forward. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion to dispose. Mr. Sutton.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve preliminary and final plat P-0023-07 and P-001-08.
Ms. Branson.
That would be for a second, Mayor.
It has been moved and seconded to approve final plat P-023-07 and preliminary plat P-001-08. Any further discussion on the dais? Seeing none, please register your vote. That is unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Yee. Next item on the agenda is item 8, and we're going to consider items 8 and 9 together. The May 8th, May 2008 City Council dates. This consideration and interaction regarding changing the dates of the May Council meetings to accommodate the Memorial Day holiday, and I believe in pre-council we said we'd change the second meeting in May from May the 26th to May the 19th. Is that correct? Is that meet everybody's memory? And that would give us 2 consecutive council meetings in May, one on May the 12th on standard second Monday of the month, and then we'll move up the next council meeting to May the 19th, Monday, May the 19th, 1 week later. And so, Mr. Hutchison.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Let's clarify too that the oath of office for the officers, which is on agenda item number 9, that will be administered on May the 19th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So everything that we're doing this for is so that we could do that plus have a second.
Yes, we are
meeting in the
required
month of
to
May.
have the select the certificates of election and administering the oath of office. We have a certain time frame in there from state law, and the meeting on the 19th will meet that requirement, and we'll have the oath of office administered on the 19th. Mr. Clark.
That will be a one-time reading, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion on these 2 items? Then what do we need to have a motion to change, Mr. Sutton?
Yeah, I move to cancel the May 26th council meeting and move it instead to May 19th, Monday.
Mr. Holcomb.
It's for a second.
It's been moved and seconded to cancel the, Ms. Branson?
Would they like to add to that motion that will be the date the certificates of election and oath of office are done as well?
That, I would say yes, that's a good friendly amendment.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to cancel the... Well, what did you second?
I said yes, that would be a good friendly amendment.
Okay, then I need a second. If you, Mr. Holcomb.
I was waiting on him to call on me because my light was lit.
Okay.
That's for a second. I can hide behind Blakely.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. It's been moved and seconded that we move the next council meeting, or the May 28th council meeting to, May 26th council meeting to May the 19th, and that will also be the date for certificates of election and oath of office. Is that a fair reading of the motion before us? Okay, any further discussion? Please register your vote. That's unanimous. Next on the agenda is a visitor citizens forum. This time is set aside for any person having business before the council that is not scheduled on the agenda to speak to the council. All comments must be directed toward the presiding officer rather than the individual council member or staff. Each speaker must limit his or her comments to the subject matter listed on the speaker's request form and must refrain from personal attacks toward any individual. Council cannot discuss or debate any issue brought forth at this time, nor can any formal action be taken, as it is not a posted agenda item in accordance with the open meetings law. So at this time, let's see, I only have one that I'm aware of, and that's Mr. Dan Lewis wants to talk about roses. Is that correct? Okay.
Dan Lewis, 4812 Springview Court. I saw the replay of the meeting last week where your engineer showed how they're going to put rocks and bury stuff to reinforce the creek on Buffalo Creek. And several people, Big Fossil Creek, several people mentioned the problems with people climbing on it and tagging it. I don't know about tagging rocks. I think the engineer may be right about kids won't tag rocks too much. But I got a possible solution. We've got a gardening club, our city beautification board. I'll bet you they're represented here, I would expect. And I was just wondering if they could have some kind of rose contest, and we'll just see who can come up with the nicest climbing rose to plant on that thing, subject to engineering approval, of course. Because no kids climb on my fence.
Because it's got thorny roses.
It's got wild Texas roses, and they're just as hardy as can be. Just thought I'd pass that along. And I should have said this to start with, but I appreciate the council and the job they're doing. And I would I'd like to commend you, and I guess since everybody's doing the thing on, what is it, March 19th or May 19th, getting recommitted, good on you. Good job, folks. But thank you.
Thank you.
You're committed.
Yeah, recommitted.
Yeah, recommitted.
Good choice of words. Thank you, Dan. All right. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, I'll close the Visitor Citizen Forum, move on to the next item on the agenda, item 10, resignation of board members. Mr. Cabano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's with, excuse me, it's with some sadness and happiness that I get to put this up there. Sergeant Jean has been on the Animal Advisory Board while she was temporarily at the Animal Service Center, and she happily gives up her seat there on the board for something that'll be happening here in just a minute. The new supervisor there will be taking over her place. So I put her resignation on the motion right now.
All right. We don't need a second for that, do we? No. Okay. I too want to add my thanks to Sergeant Raul. She's a real trooper, and she's been a real help to us in the animal shelter area. So we'll now take a vote to accept Sergeant Raul's resignation from Animal Control Board. Okay, and that's unanimous. Any other resignations? And we'll move on to item 11, appointment, reappointment. Mr. Cabano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got two of them. Would you like to do them both at the same time or individually?
However you want to do it.
We'll do them both at the same time. I only want to vote once. Our new animal shelter supervisor, Autumn Bracken, is being nominated for the Animal Advisory Board. So that's great news to have her there. I talked with her this weekend, and she's looking so forward to being there and working with her. She had her first taste of the Haltom City experience, and she thoroughly enjoyed it this weekend at the Spring Fest. My second nomination is for Jeff Western for the Fire Service Board, and I ask that his nomination be accepted.
Okay, you have the nomination for you. Any discussion? Please register your vote. Those appointments are approved. We have no unexcused absences. And we do have some more matters in executive session. So,
take a 5 or 10 minute recess.
Okay, under where did we go here? I lost my page here. Oh, under sections 551-071 and 072, we'll go into executive session. We'll do that at 9 o'clock.
Thank everyone for coming. See y'all in 2 weeks. Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're called back into regular meeting at 10:34 p.m. And have entertain a motion from our executive session. Mr. Holcomb.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to authorize the appeal of the American General opinion from January 15th.
Attorney General.
I'm sorry, Attorney General. It's 11 o'clock now, almost. The Attorney General's opinion from January 15th, 2008 public info request.
Okay. Mr. Clark.
That's for a second, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, you've heard the motion and second to appeal the Attorney General's opinion. Any further discussion? Please register your vote. And that fails. We do not appeal. Thank you.